Hello, welcome. Welcome, everybody.
Hi everyone.
Hello, Simon. Hello, Nicola. Lovely to see you. Hi, Kim.
Hi.
People are still pouring through. Maybe if you want to pop a hello and where you're joining in from today in the chat, that'd be fantastic. Get to know each other just a little bit. We love to run our virtual training events just as if we're in the room together. So we really encourage interaction. And if you can, if you're able to join your camera on and join us in the room, that would be fantastic. We love to see your beautiful faces. Thank you. Hello, Vishy. Nice to see you. Hey, Alex,
Hi.
Cam, Kat. Hello, Carolyn. Wonderful.
Hello, everyone. I think it's working.
Yep, we can
Hey,
hear you.
Max, yes, we can
Hi.
hear you, Max. Thank you. Fantastic.
Just sorry. I will probably need to step out just a few minutes. Just for an urgent thing, and I'll be back.
That's
No
not a
problem.
problem at all. Thank you for letting us know. And just letting a few more
Hi,
people in
Kelly.
there.
Hey, Phil.
Hi, Michelle. Lovely to see you.
I'm so
Hi,
excited to
Michelle.
meet you.
Oh,
Very good.
wonderful. Sounds like it's good timing
Hi.
for you.
Yes, I just let the other session through
Yeah,
with
wonderful.
Felicity.
Very good.
Well, we'd love to kick off today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we're all learning today. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here with us today. So before we really dive in, I'd love to do a quick pulse check, if you will, a quick pulse check of what brought you here today. What is it about the topic about courageous conversations that prompted you to think, I need to be in the room today? I'd really love to come along to this training. Just a couple of little insights would be great to hear what brought you here today. Maybe it's something that's really relevant in your organization at the moment. Maybe it's something that you have a personal interest in or you'd like to get better at having courageous conversations. We'd love to hear what is it for you.
I think our organization is probably going to announce a new model, operating model next week. So I just got registered by my boss for this event. So I am assuming that I would need to have some conversation with my team. So probably that is why I'm in this workshop. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing, Vishy. Okay,
Hi
feel
there,
free.
it's Alex from Suez. Hi, everybody. I look after the learning and development program for Suez, Australia and New Zealand, and am in the middle of looking at the leadership development programs. So this was really great timing.
Wonderful. Thanks, Alex. Feel free, if you don't want to share out loud, feel free to pop in the chat as well. If you do want to come off mute, that's absolutely fine too.
Kelly, I might just say we've run 2 leadership courses now with TLS back in 22 and 24. So it was a good opportunity for me to reconnect with Phil and the team again to say hi, see what's happening in the world of courageous conversations. They're always, I think happening and welcome. So, yeah, thank you.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Thanks, Kim. So the learning objectives, as you can see here on the screen today, we're really going to be looking at understanding the foundations of how our organizations may be flawed. We're also going to be looking at choosing the right conversation type for the right time, how to lead those hard conversations with real confidence and safety as well, psychological safety, and also how to turn tension into productive dialogue to enable and foster better team performance. And then we're finally going to look at how to change your language to change your results. So we've got a real action-packed session for you today. So just by welcomes and introductions, most of you here in the room have some kind of background or have a touch point with the leadership sphere in the past. My name's Kelly. I'm Business Engagement Manager here at TLS, and Phil, who will be running most of today's session, is the founder and CEO. Phil, did you want to introduce yourself and maybe say a quick hello?
Yeah, hello everyone. Welcome. I do know most people in the room, so it's great to see you here again. And yeah, as Kelly said, I think it's a high value. We packed it with value in 90 minutes. And just to be clear, and you may be mentioning this anyway, Kelly, but we will send the slides to you as well, the full slide pack. So, as we're going through it, don't try and rush taking notes and what have you. Just you can be in the moment and really lap up the learning and hopefully engage in a really, kind of a interesting way which meets your needs. So
Awesome.
that's the
Thanks,
score.
Phil. And you'll also just see a snapshot here. If you're not as familiar with TLS as others, here is just a snapshot of the work that we do across leadership development, high performing teams, executive coaching, and values-led culture as well. So I thought this next slide is a really nice place to start. Most of us tend to build our success in leadership by being really good at something. So that technical expertise, it might be, problem solving or our ability to deliver results personally. But then as we move up and through those leadership ranks, what got us to where we are or where we were isn't necessarily going to get us to where we want to be. And so that shift to enterprise leadership, as you can see there at the top, often requires a whole new operating system. And so just based on this slide, you might like to have a bit of a look, up through the triangle there, and you're starting from the functional expert down the bottom there, moving through to the enterprise leader. I'd love to just get a sense, and you can pop into the chat where you feel you might be right now, where you might be sitting at the moment on that journey. Pop into the chat. You can take a moment. Where would you place yourself today? If it's not really immediately obvious, you can have a look at some of those key problems or what might be keeping you stuck at each level to help identify where you're currently at. Alex, strategic influence. I love it. This is going to help us to really tailor the content for the workshop today as well, and the level of conversation that we'll be looking at. Thanks, Cam. Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, amazing. Very good. Thanks, Max. Awesome. Strategic influencer, Kim. Wonderful. Great. So we've got a little bit of a mix, which is fantastic. And it's really great to have that awareness of where we're at now and where we really want to get to moving forward through our leadership journey. And so, I'd also like to just share, just as an overview here, a little bit about our Amplify model. So as you can see here, this is the Amplify system architecture, or the performance by design model. And if you've been to one of our last workshops, you might have seen a version of this model. It is evolving, and it's a TLS framework which is designed to cover each piece of the puzzle in building a healthy, high-performing team that delivers on your organization strategy. And that's our main goal, is to help leaders to build a high-performance team that turns that strategy into impact. And so through the work that we do, often we find that there's three main obstacles that hold senior leaders back when it comes to building that high performance team. So it might be that, your team are really busy, but they're not always aligned. It might be, everyone's working hard, but maybe not always on the right things, and those priorities might keep shifting. And then the next problem we often hear is that, my team is working so hard, but we're not seeing the results yet. So you might feel like you're making a bit of progress, and then something happens and the same issues seem to resurface quarter after quarter. And then the third main problem is that the strategy execution is slow and often frustrating. So you know where you want to go, but getting there can feel a lot harder than it should. And so here's what we want. Here's what we want instead. You can see here there are three pillars that make up the core of our Amplify program, designed by the mastermind himself, Phillip Ralph, after his decades of experience in this space in high performing teams. So really broadly, it's the leadership blueprint, the performance blueprint, sorry, that a healthy and vital team. So the vitality method is what we're calling it. And then leadership capability. That's our leadership framework. So firstly, just a bit of an overview here. As you can see, the performance blueprint is really about clarity, alignment, follow through. So instead of that busyness, we really want our team focused so that teams know exactly what matters and why it matters. So that we can look like clear goals that everyone can name and own, taking accountability, teams working in sync, not in silos, really towards that strategy. And then, we know that many organizations focus too heavily on performance. So we focus on both performance and health at the same time. So our vitality method, it's all around, culture and energy and trust and engagement. So instead of having, the team feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, which is what we're hearing at the moment, we're hearing so frequently, even at the beginning of the year, people are feeling overwhelmed when they should really be rested after a break. So we want our teams to be healthy. We want a culture where people can feel seen, where they can feel supported and engaged as well. So what that looks like is leaders that can create a space of safety and challenge in equal measure. And it might be, high connection, high trust, and that sense of purpose within the team. That's what we're really going for. And then as you can see at the bottom there, the leadership framework, this is all about capability, connection, and enterprise thinking. So instead of that siloed focus that we often see, we want to build skills around systemic leadership. So we're really supporting leaders in their ability to lift their eyes from the operations to that enterprise level impact. So building leaders who align people, performance, and culture, and not just manage them. And so then you'll see how our Amplify system here is broken down into categories. And these are the 27 core categories, so 9 for each of those 3 pillars. And today, as you can see highlighted there on the screen, we're going to be focusing on just one. In fact, it's a subcategory of V6 conflict capability, which is courageous conversations, the piece we're going to be sharing today. So it's just one small part of this overall Amplify model. So, there's my slide gone. So today, like I said, one small piece, we're going to be focusing on the connection framework, and this is the map. I know it might seem a little bit overwhelming. I really love this slide because it's so pretty, but it just gives you an overview.
Sorry about the content, it's just pretty.
It is pretty, yeah. So it really is about restoring trust and momentum through collaborative and courageous connection. So the connection framework, first, it's about that mindset shift, and this is what we're going to flow through today, the content that we're going to look through. So that idea that under pressure we armor up. We often resist that vulnerability, and the alternative, of course, is being the daring leader or the daring learner. So staying really curious and grounded. We're also going to look at conflict as growth as well. So if there's friction, often it's a signal that something needs clarifying or aligning or repairing. And so we're really going to look in detail around this piece, conflict as growth. And then, of course, preparation. So great conversations are often, I don't think one is the right word, but they're often, made successful in the beginning and in the preparation. So we're going to share some simple framework for preparation. And then we're going to also look at the dialogue model. So what we know is when conversations go wrong, we often go to silence, so avoidance or withholding, or control, blaming, or forcing. So our goal is dialogue and getting back to that shared pool of meaning. And then we're also going to look at those language shifts as well, as I mentioned earlier. So you don't need to memorize this or anything. We're going to use it as a reference point, and we'll practice the parts that make the biggest difference today through the session. So I'd love to invite you to have a bit of a think now about, you don't have to complete this table or anything, but I'd love you to maybe jot down a conversation, a challenging conversation in your work life right now that you might like to focus on in this session. What's going to be really impactful and useful that you can use as a lens for this 90 minutes today. Just take a moment, jot down something that might be really relevant for you at the moment. So a challenging conversation or a crucial conversation is one where the stakes are high. There might be emotions present. opinions might differ. It's going to be most impactful for you if you can pick something that's really real right now and nothing hypothetical. Maybe you could just give us a little thumbs up if you've got something in mind. Michelle, you're nodding. Yep, fantastic. Thank you. Love it. Thumbs up. Very good.
It's probably not going to be who took the last Tim Tam out of the fridge. Might be something. Oh, sorry, Michelle, I just took yours, did I? The framework we'll look at is, yeah, the more robust, the harder the conversation, the better. The framework really serves the conversation well.
Fantastic.
Lots of thumbs up
And
there.
yeah, lots of thumbs up. You might also like to consider why this might be a challenging conversation and, what's the fear around it? And then also considering, what are the benefits of taking action, or what are the consequences of doing nothing? And so just on a bit of a side note, would love to maybe hear from a couple of people or feel free to pop in the chat. What do you feel your strengths are at the moment in having crucial conversations? Maybe one or two things that stand out for you as strengths. Familiarity, Michelle. Yeah, thanks. Nice. Thanks, Nicola. Rapport building, listening. Cam, upfront. Awesome. Yeah, long-standing relationships. Nice. Listening. And then would also love you to consider, where is that learning edge and what would you like to improve when it comes to crucial conversations? Carolyn, openness and trust to deal with conflict. Yeah, amazing. And again, if you could pop in the chat, where that learning edge might be for you. What are those things that you would really like to improve in this space? I'm just looking at the time, Phil, and I know I said it was 15 minutes, but I think
You're doing well. I can talk fast if needed. So my
Alex,
family
knowing how
say.
far to push the conversation. Yeah. Coaching and prompting team members to have the crucial conversations required. Yeah. So as a leader, how do you encourage team members to have those conversations? Providing psychological safety to make people feel safe to air out their insecurities. Thanks, Michelle. Peter, I get nervous is what I'd like to improve. Yeah, you get nervous. Helping others to connect and allow authentic conversations. Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. Awesome. So we've got a little bit to work with there, and hopefully everybody has chosen a crucial conversation to focus on for the next little bit or the next while here in today's session. And I know this slide might be confronting. It is confronting on purpose in really highlighting the silence tax, so the cost of unspoken concerns. And, this is really about when people don't say the thing or don't say what they need to say. We know that organizations pay for it in things like delays, rework, stress and burnout, escalating issues or fractured relationships, leaders carrying problems that could be solved closer to the work. So a couple of you have mentioned, how do we support your leaders in having those conversations earlier? And you can see the figure here, $54,860 per year, senior leader silence tax. I think that stands out as something to really focus on. And, so maybe even just connecting back to that conversation you have in mind to focus on today, if nothing changes, what is the tax that's going to be in your team over the next 30 days or 90 days? And, what does that what does that number look like for you? And I think, the point here is that this really links to what the research says and what leaders need right now. And so I'm sure many of you have heard of Brene Brown, who spent, over 2 decades studying emotional intelligence, the whole range of emotional experience, and particularly courage, vulnerability, shame, and empathy, through the lens of leadership. And so you're probably aware of her books and her podcasts and her TED Talks, and maybe even the Dare to Lead program, which of course we happen to run. Reach out to us if you'd like a Dare to Lead program. But the program itself actually emerged from 7 years of really robust research and numerous questions that were asked quite consistently throughout the research. And in particular, this one on the screen. So, what, if anything, about the way people are leading today needs to change in order for leaders to be successful in a complex, rapidly changing environment where we're faced with seemingly intractable challenges and an insatiable demand for innovation? It's a big one, a really good question, and not easy to answer. But there was one consistent answer through all the interviews and through the research. Anyone have a sense of what that answer might be? Pop it in the chat or jump off mute. What do you think might be that consistent answer to this question? Being brave, Simon, vulnerability, having courageous conversation. Oh, Alex, fancy that. Yeah, so it is actually courage. So the consistent answer through the research is that we need braver leaders and more courageous cultures. And it's one thing to say it, but what does that actually mean? What does it actually mean? And, where do we start when it comes to building, courageous cultures? And, I think it's with this question and this recognition, really. The greatest challenge in developing brave leaders is not a lack of professional skills or knowledge. The greatest challenge is actually helping them recognize and answer their personal call to courage. And, so today you might like to think about, what is your personal call to courage? And we just wanted to share this briefly. This is the Armored versus Daring Leadership assessment. And you can see here on the left-hand side of where the red boxes are, is the armored leadership elements. And then on the opposite side is the daring leadership elements. And just because of time here, you might like to just sort of zoom in on the tapping out of hard conversations section, which is sort of halfway down that first section. Maybe have a look at some of those armored versus daring leadership comments there, and have a think about where you might sit on that scale, whether you might be closer to the armored leadership currently, or whether you might be edging out onto the daring leadership side. And would love to get a bit of a sense in the chat, on a scale of 1 to 4, where you feel you might be, 1 being in the armored side, 4 being on the daring leadership side, particularly around hard conversations. Just for your reference, also, you can jump onto Brené's website and you can actually do the full Daring Leadership Assessment for free. You can also do the survey within the book itself if you haven't already read it. Michelle, smack bang in the middle. Hang on, is there a middle between 1 to 4? So 2.5? So yeah, curious if you had to give yourself a rating from 1 to 4, where you feel you might be, even just in general. It's your
Yeah, it'd be
general.
interesting around the team or your organization as well, because a lot of people here are representing their organization and going to take some of this back. So it's not just about us as individuals, but yeah, organizationally, it'd be interesting to get a number.
Yeah.
I'm going to give us a 3, Kelly.
Cool.
We're pretty good at it, but we can improve. We've got a whole bunch of introverts in our team, so apart from Kelly and myself.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. Organisationally low is aspiring to improve. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Alex. So yeah, would encourage you if you haven't already read Brené's book, Dare to Lead. This assessment is in there, or you can head over to her website and do it for free. But I'm just going to move on here because Brené often talks about mindset, that mindset shift, and the idea that being clear is kind and being unclear is unkind. And so I love what she says here. Sometimes speaking the truth feels like we're being unkind, especially when we're sharing difficult information or feedback. But actually, in reality, dancing around the truth is unkind. So when we avoid stating the truth, when we're vague or ambiguous under the guise of being kind, it's often because we're trying to lessen the discomfort for ourselves and not for the other person. Anyone like to share any thoughts on this? Anything that pops into your mind?
I've always hated the compliment sandwich, saying something good, then sneaking something bad in there, and then ending with something good. Because at the end of it, I found that, it just takes away from what's important by all the buffering. I've never liked that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Michelle.
That's the most polite way I've ever heard it termed, Michelle, the compliment sandwich. Normally it's other more colourful language. Well done.
Vishy, I notice you've come off mute. Would you like to share?
Yeah, and sometimes I prepare myself as to what I should be saying to the team, and I start it, but then I don't finish it the way I want to finish it, and it's always like I feel, oh, I didn't say everything I wanted to say,
Mm,
and there is a hesitation, like how the people will react.
yeah, that hesitation. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Mm.
And it's also about, there's such a big focus on creating psychological safety as well. So we don't want to make other people feel unsafe in the way that we're providing constructive feedback. And I think that difference between being really clear but in a safe way is hard for some people to understand or navigate.
Mm,
It is like, how do you explain people work ethics? Like, we are dealing with adults here. So, how do you
yeah.
explain work ethics to people?
Yeah. Feeling it might be something they should already know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to pass across to Phil in just a moment, but I'd love to share this with you before we dive into some more meaty content. Giving engaged feedback here. I love how Brené puts it. I know that I'm ready to give feedback when. I'd love you to have a look at these 11 dot points here. And maybe if you could pop into the chat just one of the numbers that you feel is a real strength for you, and then one of the numbers that you feel might be challenging for you. Alex, good at 10, bad at 1. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Peter. Good at 4, bad at 1 also. Interesting. If anyone would like to share their thoughts and jump off mute, you're welcome to. 6 is a tough one for you, Michelle. Cam, 11. So I think this is really interesting to think about when it comes to giving feedback, but also receiving feedback as well. And it's kind of, both sides of the coin there. I know that I'm ready to receive feedback when. So keeping that in mind, and like Phil said at the start, we've packed a lot in this session, and we're going to see how we go. But I would love to, yeah, Phil, do you want to jump in?
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, that's awesome. Great setup. And before we get into the nitty-gritty of the conversation framework, we did want to take a big picture view and really provide our view on where organizations are at and why we often need to have courageous conversations. So it's more of an upstream conversation first, and then we'll do the downstream part, which is we need to, get really granular on that. So it's similar to, when organizations say, oh, we need to, do resilience training. We need to make our people more resilient. I firstly say maybe you need to make your organizations more effective and designed for a people-friendly workplace and not do a downstream kind of, trying to make your people more resilient. What are the upstream factors that we can actually shift? So I think that's where we'd like to start with the crucial conversations piece. So let's start with our beliefs about people before going big picture. So I'm sure just about everyone on the call's seen this before. So Douglas McGregor, 1960, distinguished between two images of people, theory X and theory Y. And you can see the difference between left and right there. I won't go through all of them because you can read them, but of course, theory X is about thinking people dislike work, they're lazy, we need to kind of motivate them externally, etc. Versus theory Y, where we have a much more positive view of people. Here's the brutal truth that only one is actually true, only one is supported by the evidence. Which one do you think it is, theory X or theory Y? Just pop it in the chat. Theory X or Y, which one's supported? Yeah, theory Y. Theory X is really nothing more than a prejudice that we have about other people. And I really like if we believe that people are theory X, then we'll manage and lead in a particular way. If we believe people are theory Y, the same is true. We'll manage and lead in a particular way. So it's I guess it's kind of the thinking that we really need to challenge in our organizations. And there's two reasons why theory X thinking is still commonplace. Firstly, it reflects common thinking from our pre-democratic industrial age, pre-enlightenment kind of past. And secondly, when we observe other people's behavior, we tend to make conscious or conclusions about the human nature. We give ourselves a lot of generosity, but we don't give other people generosity in terms of their behavior. So it's what Niels Fledgling in some of these slides comes from, calls it naive cynicism, where we attribute negativity to what we see in others, but give ourselves a lot more kind of space. So we can't act on systems, leadership, performance, or change coherently if we don't agree beforehand on the assumptions we hold about human nature. Now, we're not going to land on the answer today, but it'd just be worthwhile, I think, challenging ourselves as to which one do we believe in, and maybe it's somewhere in between, challenging our assumptions about what we believe in people. So Brené puts it another way: do you believe people are doing the best they can? It always creates a lot of discussion and disagreement, and it's not our job to try and convince you one way or the other. But Brené talks about her husband answering that question when she asked him, "Do you believe people are doing the best they can?" And he said, "I don't know whether they are or not, but I just know my life's much easier if I believe they are," which is a nice way of thinking about it. So Frederick Taylor, 1911, The Principles of Scientific Management introduced a revolutionary approach to organizational science aimed at enhancing productivity in the day, and it did enhance productivity. He established that division between the thinkers and the doers, and that is still very strongly with us today. So even though it was criticised as quite inhumane at the time, it became a widespread way of managing, and we still have it today. We have managers who do the thinking, and I know this is a generalization, and everyone else, does the doing. So that command and control style is what we can call alpha, or that alpha kind of style. And we'll pick up the thinkers and doers later on. So here's a live example. This is an org chart. So what year do you think this org chart is from? Just pop it in the chat. 1970. Thanks, Cam. 1985. Go Carolyn. Michelle, 97. Any other guesses at all? 1920. Alex is going lowball. Very good. All right. Most people have no idea, and the dates do range, and often, from there's like a 200-year gap here, but the chart was published in 1910, and it's a operating model for the Union Pacific and Southern Pacific system. So it's a railway company. And isn't it funny that we can't carbon date an organizational chart? It's over 120 years old. And yet, if we look at different items from a different era, you can see these items, and straight away we can kind of roughly carbon date them. So the operating assumptions in every business, like an operating system that runs silently in the background. That was me, by the way. That's my when I was younger. Is that you, Kelly, in the right-hand side there? She's on mute,
No.
cracking up. Yeah. And so not much has changed. We like to think a lot has changed, but at the fundamental core of how we organize our organizations, there's not the kind of basic assumptions and structures are there. So we need to understand that every organization has three structures, and I really like this again from Niels Fledgling, who is a really great thinker around these, and we can ignore them at our peril if we don't really understand them. So it doesn't matter whether you're a startup or an enterprise organization, these three systems are operating silently in the background. So they're not choices like a menu, they're universal laws of organizational life as inherent as kind of gravity in the physical world. So you can see the three there: informal structure, the power comes from influence, the value creation structure, reputation, then the formal structure. Um, Out of those three, which do you think managers focus mostly on: informal structure, value creation, or the formal structure? We can probably guess, right? Yeah, absolutely, the formal structure. So when one structure dominates, the organization becomes unbalanced. So we overemphasize. If we overemphasize hierarchy, it breeds bureaucracy and fear, over-reliance on informal network risks inconsistency in politics, and we neglect the value creation structure, and that we starve ourselves of innovation and performance. So neither is right or wrong, but we just need to understand the nuances of each. We put this table together to try and bridge our understanding around the difference between those formal, informal, and value creation. They each serve a different purpose, and so if we're privy to these and understand them, then we can make the culture and the climate a much more friendlier place for people. So if we design around beta principles, our organizations is allowed to operate in a way that is present there anyway. It's their natural working style. It's already there. And it gives us, everyone has the potential to lead regardless of role or title. Groups and teams come together around critical work and disband when complete. And the latent power of teams is released. So as they should, as they should be the primary unit of production. So the right-hand side's operating. It's just how much do we attend to it and understand it and leverage it to the benefit of the organization and performing as we'd expect to. So the key is to empower teams, not individuals. We often hear about, we need to empower people. Yes, we do, but teams are the primary unit of production. So we need to empower teams, not isolated individuals. And then finally, culture, one of the most misunderstood, concepts in organizational life. We hear about culture change. Culture is an effect of an organization's success or failure, not a direct cause. So it reflects how we've set the organization up. It can't be controlled directly. We can only shift culture by changing the drivers of culture. So culture serves as an organizational memory, if you like. So it can either facilitate or hinder behavior. And if we're not clear about the alpha and beta kind of principles, then we are likely to just focus on the individual in terms of culture change rather than designing the structure, the processes, the systems, the very assumptions in which we hold organizations. So I really like Aaron Dignan talks in Brave New Work talks about we have invalid operating systems. So if we're really going to create awesome organizations and allow people to thrive and be their best, we really need to focus on the operating system. Edwards Deming, the renowned statistician, said a bad system will always beat a good person. And I think that's the crux of what we're trying to get across here. A bad system will always beat a good person. And I don't know about you, but Kelly mentioned it earlier that the number of people who are talking about burnout already, and they're saying, normally by January, February, I'm into it, I'm ready for the year. A lot of people are saying to us, I'm done, I'm beat. I've had a break, but I haven't come back refreshed. So we're doing something in organizations which is not necessarily tending to people and allowing them to be their best. So finally, on this, Aaron Dignan talks about we cannot do the best work of our lives under the auspices of an operating system that presumes our stupidity, our laziness, and our untrustworthiness. When it comes to people, in many ways, you get what you design for. So to be people positive is to assume and expect the best of everyone. So I've given you a whole lot of information there. I might just pause for a moment and ask for any comments or questions. That's the kind of the bigger macro view. I kind of thought it'd be remiss of us not to address that rather than just going downstream and saying, hey, here's how to have a conversation. There's a lot more we can do in the context in which people operate. Thoughts, questions? Is it making sense? Love the setup. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Phil. It's really super interesting so far. Really enjoying it. I think one of the things that hit for me was around the you can't create culture. The culture is the byproduct of what you do, which I think a lot of organizations talk about creating a good culture or that they've got a good culture, but is it something they say rather than that is actually true?
Yeah.
My background in working for, organizations where there's 40,000 employees versus working for an organization where there's less than 20 is that is really noticeable the smaller you are, but when you're in a bigger organization, it's also harder to change.
Thanks, Nicola. It's great. I love your insights there. Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? And we end up blaming the victim. So we blame people in organizations and we say, you have to change. And then somehow they'll magically change the culture. Let's work together, on mindsets, behaviors, systems, structure, process, make it a people-friendly place and not blame the individual. I think we don't give due attention to the context in which people operate, and we wonder why they're behaving in a certain way. So to boil all that down to a critical few leadership behaviors, which we've already talked about a couple of times or mentioned, build a culture of psychological safety. That is the foundation. Build mechanisms of success together. Talking with a government agency at the moment as recently as yesterday, and I don't want to be critical of additional structures like a project management office, etc. But I said, it'd be interesting if we're to work on creating an organisation where innovation and ideas and execution bubbles up rather than a top-down kind of driven process. So that's the mechanisms of success which I'm talking about. So you get rapid fire ignition points throughout the organisation for innovating and executing, against the strategy. Empower and share leadership. So that's, leadership beyond a role or a title, and then guide people on that journey. All right. So we're moving into the conversation structure now. So we recently expanded our conversations framework. So we were asked by a US company just in the last few months, still it's an ongoing piece of work to design a crucial conversations program for 900 of their managers. And so based on the context of that company, we designed 5 types of conversations and put it into a more cohesive framework, where before we've very much focused on type 4 conversations, which is about complex conversations in a safety context. Type 1, hey, stop, is really critical, and we borrow that from aviation. Type 2 is about aligning, getting and setting expectations. Type 3 is much more of a strengths-based conversation, and then type 4 is more of that, half yearly or annual formal performance conversation. So as it says, that bottom line, as we go along from type 1 to type 5, we need more planning and structure and thought in that. So what we're going to be doing is really focusing today, just because of time, is just focusing on type 4. And you can see there's a couple of different frameworks here. The one we're going to focus on is framework number 3, which comes from Susan Scott, which is the one we've been using for a long, long time. Leaders love it. They feel confident and capable, once they've gone through the process of thinking about the conversation and practicing it. So I'll set that up shortly. Just to come out of that just for a moment, we do want people to have conversations. And so we've created this document. And if you scan the QR code, you'll be able to download that document. I think it's about 11 pages. And it really is, as it says there, it's about how do I connect and reset a relationship? How do I have those conversations? So a lot of the frameworks I've talked about are in this document for people to go and hopefully feel empowered and have agency to have those kinds of conversations. So that's the first document. Then if things, they're not able to reset or repair the relationship, or it feels like there's a fracture there, which is just too deep and runs too deeply and for too long a time, we then have more of a formal process, which we call facilitated dialogue. So they get a document, which is an agreement document. And then the third step is a final document, which really gives them lots of skills and tools to be able to have that facilitated, mediated conversation. This is a real conversation I've done recently. So we have a canvas, we literally fill in, a Miro board and the post-it notes as people are talking, and then we send them an agreement. So I just thought I'd mention that. Step 1, we really want people to have a conversation without having to move to this step, but sometimes people do. All right, back to the conversation. So what are some of the common errors, maybe in the chat, some of the common errors you see in your organization when people are trying to have a hard conversation? So what might be some of the things you see? Is it about the way it started? Is it about being too blunt? Emotions? Yeah, thanks, Melissa. Approach is black and white. Yeah, that's right. Rather than being curious and understanding the story, being too nice. Thanks, PJ. Yep, thanks, Kim. Exactly. Jump straight to solutions, not listening. Excellent. So these are some of the common ones that we see. So how's it going? What's the problem with so how's it going? We lose impetus. It's also disingenuous if we're trying to build false rapport. If it's a crucial conversation, if it's a type 4 conversation, yes, we want to make people comfortable, make sure they've got water or whatever they need, but let's not kind of fluff around at the start and say, so how's it going? Because if they get a hint that this is going to be a tough conversation, they're going to tell you all the reasons why they've been behaving in a particular way or why they haven't got the reporting on time. So don't start with, so how's it going? Sugarcoating, that's a pretty obvious one. Pillow talk, that's in a way the complimentary sandwich, Michelle. So that's too soft and we're really not sure what the actual message is. Writing the script, that's where people have a predetermined view of how the conversation will go. I've had these conversations with Sarah before. Sarah will come back with X and I'm going to hit her with Y. She'll come back with Z. I'll hit her with, et cetera, et cetera. And before you know it, we've constrained the conversation in a box and we haven't allowed it to breathe. We haven't allowed it to have possibility. Then finally, the machine gun one is where it's just tough and we've really dismantled someone. We've really attacked them almost. So they're the common errors. And the opposite, of course, of those is the desired approach. So we really strongly believe in preparation. And so we use the 4 Ps: prepare ourselves, prepare the message, prepare the environment, and prepare the person. Again, just really quickly, in terms of preparing yourself, what are some of the things you do? It'd be great just for everyone to put in one word. Prepare self. I'm going to put in, for me, research. I'm a planner, right? I can do stuff on the fly, but I like to do my research. I like to get my powder dry. Get the facts, time, thanks Cam. Get all the facts, get examples. Great. There's also something about not being triggered, right? So we don't really want to, if we're in a kind of a triggered state, a reactive state, unless, safety's, if we're working with your team, Cam, and safety's in paramount and we're triggered, hey, we're going to have the conversation, right? We're not going to, cool off for an hour, then come back. We're going to act immediately. Yeah, so make sure you're in the right frame of mind. Thanks, Michelle. What about preparing the message? What would be important about preparing the message? I'm going to put in clear. Clarity. Thanks, Carolyn. Consistent. Yep. Notes, dot points. Love it. Some people are afraid to use notes. I think notes are absolutely fine. I don't know what others think, but I'd rather get the message right and kind of have a few notes rather than just make something up or try and remember things. So being specific. Excellent. And the environment. What would the environment look like? I'm going to add one. Private, concise, private room, neutral. Neutral's mine. Yep. What I mean by neutral is not, in someone's office, for example, is probably not the best place. There's a whole power script written in people's offices, isn't it? Same as boardrooms and why I hate facilitating workshops in a boardroom, because the boardroom has a script. Priya Parker talks about physical spaces almost have a memory, and those memories are kind of forced upon people. So how do we have a neutral space which actually works really well? Love notes, yep. You mean you love notes, not love notes? It's how you say it, isn't it? It's really important. Uh, excellent, love that. And then finally, the person, prepare the person. Yep, on in person is great. Thanks, Trudy. Nice to see you, Trudy. I didn't realize you're in them. Yeah, fantastic. This is a really controversial one. I've been teaching this framework for many, many years, and it always creates controversy. I'd love to hear, do we tell the person what the topic is about prior to the conversation? So in other words, do we warn them or do we not? And what are the pros and cons? I'd love just to focus on that before we move forward. Thanks, Nicola. Clear about the reason for meeting. You might have just answered my question, but you could do that in the session, I guess. Yeah.
I think it depends on what you're going to be talking about, because
Yep.
if it's something really awful that you know is going to upset them and the meeting's not for another 3 days, it's really unfair.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's a delicate balance, isn't it? Do they require warning? They might want to bring someone along, a support person or HR or what have you. The last thing you want to do is say, hey, Alex, on a Friday, I need to have a tough conversation with you on Monday, but hey, have a good weekend. It's not going to happen, right? People are going to worry. Yeah, so it depends. It's context dependent, that one. It's not a hard and fast rule either way. And people can feel ambushed, absolutely. Thanks, Ken. All right, so these are some of the bullet points. I think we covered off most of them, so prepare yourself. Friend of mine says, I like to strike when the iron is cold. So in the heat of the moment may not be the right time to have that conversation. Preparing the message. I think we've covered most of these off as well. Clear is kind, right? That's, unclear is unkind. It's critical. And the framework we're going to practice, I think, demonstrates that clarity really, really well. Prepare the environment, which we've talked about. Again, a getting and setting expectations conversation. Hey, how you going? Welcome to the team kind of conversation. Absolutely might be a cup of coffee conversation. Out in a cafe, a type 4 conversation will most likely not, that context does not fit the gravity of the conversation. So it'll be a neutral place, probably in the office, and probably not, hopefully not glass-walled offices as well. and preparing the other person. Okay, so let's have a look at the actual model itself. So Kelly alluded to this earlier, crucial conversations where the stakes are high, there's opposing views and the emotions might be strong. So these are the toughest kinds of conversations that we need to have. So we thought we'd focus on this today. So this is the opening statement. So the 7 components, as you can see there, name the issue, select an example, as someone said in the chat earlier. It's great to have examples, do your research, do your homework. Describe your emotions about this issue. That's an interesting one. Why do you think that might be useful, and how would we go about explaining or describing our emotions? Someone who might want to come off mute or pop in the chat.
I think I feel it's easy to talk about how it made you feel rather than letting the frustration come out in anger or frustration. Saying, hey, when you did this thing, this is how it made me feel, because it can help with the magnitude of the conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Cam. Exactly. And we try and avoid, and I know you weren't in the conversation itself, but the way we talk about that is I feel or I felt as a result, knowing that no one can make you feel anything, right? So it's I feel or I felt, not you made me feel, which then kind of blames the other person. My kids always, when they were younger, just celebrated the twins, well, 3 kids' birthdays in a week, but when they were younger, I used to say, oh, I'm really angry with you, Daddy. You made me angry. And I say, well, I can't make you feel anything. That's your choice. And of course, they'd get more angry based on that. But as they've grown up, they've kind of realized the power of that. Clarify what's at stake. Identify your contribution to this problem. It says optional there, but I think it's really great if we can think about what is my contribution to the scenario. So it might be, hey, I think in hindsight, I could have been clearer about X or my expectations or what have you. So it also demonstrates ownership. It demonstrates that this is, takes 2 to tango kind of thing. There's one time when we wouldn't talk about that, and that's if you're right at the performance management end. You wouldn't say, well, I'm sorry, we're here. And most likely your performance is poor because I'm a crap manager. We wouldn't say that if it's at that end, but if we're giving feedback, then it's entirely appropriate to at least own your part. Indicate your wish to resolve the issue and invite your partner to respond. So it's a really brilliant framework. And the thing about it is that first 5 steps or 7 is done within 60 seconds. So it's brief, it forces us to be clear, and it forces us to be succinct. A number of times I see people kind of, rabbit on and they're talking, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And okay, what's the point? What are you actually trying to say here? So in 60 seconds, you have to be super clear. Thoughts on that before I run through an example? Does that resonate with people? Not sure about it?
I think it's good. Like you said, some people out of nervousness go on about things that, and you go into your comfort zone, so to keep it succinct like that, I think is a good framework.
Yeah. And it kind of forces us to be really clear, doesn't it, Kim?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So a really quick example, in my last corporate role, which is a while ago now, working for a global company, the head of the Asia Pacific region phoned me. He said, hey, Phil, we've got 2,000 people I want to run through training XYZ. I said, no worries, I'll get someone from my team to call you and have a deeper conversation about, needs analysis and what have you. Elma rang me 4 weeks later to say, hey, no one from your team has had a conversation with me. We're talking to another provider. Now, we were an internal provider, but we, obviously we still wanted to do the work and work in the region. So I called in Sonia. I said, hey, Sonia, just had a conversation with Elma, who said no one from our team has phoned him. And he said that they're now talking to another provider. I feel really disappointed that this has occurred and we may lose that work as a result. I probably should have followed up, not probably, I should have followed up to make sure that that was happening and checked in on progress. So I'm keen to understand what happened and what is your perspective. So what did you notice about that? I didn't time it, but I know that was well and truly less than 60 seconds. But you can critique me, but it's more about the framework. What worked, what didn't work, what did you like, what aren't you sure about? So please unmute or pop a comment in the chat.
You didn't assume that someone had done the wrong thing. You were curious about what happened and you showed your own vulnerability in ways you could have done it better as well.
Great. Perfect. Thanks, Alex. Hopefully that, yeah, did come across and it was true. Remain calm, neutral, and deliver the message. Thanks, Kim. Short but very clear on why the conversation was needed. Excellent. It was true that actually what had happened, Sonia had spoken to someone else in Alma's team, and so she hadn't dropped the ball at all. And so it was good that I didn't go in with a kind of a blamey, persona, if you like, and it was more one of curiosity. The other thing I didn't do is say you. And again, it's just one of those one percenters in terms of decreasing the tone of blame. So if I'd said, "Hey, you didn't, contact Elma about the training," I said, "No one from our team has contacted Elma about the training, to my knowledge." So 7 steps, 60 seconds. And then, of course, as it says there, interaction and resolution. A great conversation is just a conversation. It's just a chat if nothing actually happens as a result. So what's the clear actions and commitments that we're signing up to as a result? So the conversation could be an hour long, but the starting point of the conversation is critical. It's like those high divers, the people who dive off cliffs. If they get the first part wrong, the end part's really painful. Same as conversations, we start with confidence, we start clearly, and we're setting ourselves up and the other person for success. All right, so I'm going to invite you. This is where it's going to feel a little bit workshoppy. In a sec, you're going to go into a breakout room with one other person. And so I'm going to invite you now just for a couple of minutes to write in those 7 steps for the conversation that Kelly asked you to think about. If you haven't got one, that's fine. Or you don't want to do the exercise, that's fine. I'd encourage you to do it. But if not, you can just have a chat with the person in the breakout room and have a chat about the framework and chat about where they're from and what have you. But I'd love you to practice, actually. So yeah, this is what we're going to do, but I'll go through that in a sec in terms of logistics. But if there's any questions, let me know. Otherwise, yeah, just spend a moment thinking about your bullet point under each of those 7 steps. All right, how are we going? I haven't thought about this for years. I remember one time it was an in-person workshop and someone, we'd got to this point and then someone, then I put them in, pairs, and someone walked up to me and said, "I want to have a conversation with you, Phil." And it was about something I'd said in the workshop. So yeah, they used me as a live guinea pig, but I haven't thought about that for years. That's weird. So hopefully no one wants to talk to me in the breakout room. All right. So what we're going to do, based on that little setup, is you'll be A and B. You'll have 5 minutes in total. So it's just a quick, practice of the framework. One person will provide the context. So in my case, it would have been, let's say, Kelly and I working together. I'd say, "Hey, Kelly, this is about Sonia and my team. She was supposed to contact someone in the Asia Pacific region. The guy rang me 4 weeks later and no one had contacted him. So that's what the conversation's about." So a really quick setup. You don't need to furnish the other person with a lot of detail in order for them to role play the other individual well. Please, for the aspiring actors in the room, don't overact. Don't, over egg it, put too much mayonnaise on it. Just act pretty normal. But if the person says they're likely to get really angry and frustrated, certainly you can portray some of that emotion. So context for 1 minute, and then B plays the person who's going to receive it. A, you'll run through your 7 steps that you've just prepared, and then the feedback piece. So A, the person who practiced the conversation will say, "Hey, I think what I did well, so that's what worked well, WWW, even better if, I think I sounded a bit apologetic, or I think I could have been clearer," or what have you. Then B gives you feedback. So it's just a quick 5 minutes just to practice and try it on. So any questions before we put you into a breakout room? All good? And if you don't want to do any of that, that's fine. You're here voluntarily. Just have a chat with the person in the breakout room. I'd love you to try it, but have a chat, talk about what we've covered so far. See you back in 5 minutes. Hey, Vishy, how'd you go?
Yeah, I mean, we were discussing about the issues that you come across, when you have to talk to your team about certain things and explaining the difficulty. Yeah.
Awesome.
And also, the work culture is not work culture that comes up within a span of a month. It's over a period of decades, how the culture is set up in the organization.
Very good. Welcome back. Welcome back. How'd you go? Was that fun?
That was fun, but I felt bad because I took up all the time and PJ didn't get a chance.
Sorry about that. How'd you go, PJ?
Oh, look, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, and it was fresh in my mind because I had to have one of those conversations yesterday. So I think it's Michelle, isn't it? We're just walking through, she did her example, which I was kind of going, well, I can relate to that. And I actually don't think I did that bad yesterday in my conversation. So don't feel bad that we didn't get to do me. Yeah, I think it was excellent, the step through framework.
Right. Yeah, it's a
Thank you.
brilliant framework.
Yeah. Do you think you can take a note with that on it into each of these kind of conversations though?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
It'd be great just to hear from a couple of other people, your experience. And again, I'm not after, the content of your issue. I don't want you to share that, but I'd love to hear your experience of the framework and, how it felt for you.
I think it keeps it clear and concise and to the point.
Great. Thanks, Cam.
Yeah, you can sometimes get lost in the detail and try to sugarcoat things a bit.
Yep. So you had good conversation with Melanie?
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome.
I think one of the most poignant points for me was the what's at stake, and I think that's probably something that's missing from your natural conversation without it being a thoughtful conversation or mindful conversation. Is, well, are you really making clear what the implications of this and what's at stake? And for me, my conversations are with people that are not working directly with the customer facing in the customer facing environment. And so I think it's that this is what's at stake that needs to be really clarified for them, or made real for them in a way that makes sense to them. So
yeah, great point. And one tip around that, the what's at stake, ideally it would have a mutual meaning point, meaning that the purpose, often if there's some, say there's a fracture in the relationship, in worst case scenario, that what's at stake should be something which is you elevate beyond the tension and the fracture to the point where you both, what's the point you both care about, which is at stake. So it could be team morale or productivity or whatever it is that you both care about. If it's only something you care about, the other person's going, kind of thing. So, yeah. Maybe one other person. How did you go, Carolyn and Trudy? I was rapt when I saw you two together. Pretty interesting pair, power couple.
Unfortunately, Phil, I had some sound issues with mine and we had to move, and so we didn't really get to go
okay.
Through a lot. But Trudy's was very interesting, and I think it would be good that whole process would be good to go through with someone and sort of understand that a little bit more. I think it would be good.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I think, Phil, like I know you say you can use this in kind of any context. I suppose I'm just thinking in my mind where the what's at stake conversation is really interesting, and particularly around, like org restructure. Like, what's at stake as a CEO is going to be very different to what's at stake as an individual. So I suppose I'm just navigating that in my head at the moment, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah. So there's a term called, it's really jargonistic, but I don't know another way to describe it, but upward laddering and downward laddering. So let's say it's at the highest level is the org restructure. So it's okay to then downward ladder in a sequential way what it means to that person. So you can the 5 frames of storytelling really are very informative here. So the what's in it for me, and then people care about team, people care about the organization, customer, and then global concerns. And so if you're at the organizational level 3, you can then ratchet down to how that connects with what they care about, if that makes sense. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, thank you. So let's move on. It's another tool that we will provide to you. So there's a QR code in a sec, but also we'll send this out, via PDF, fillable PDF. But just a framework for planning the conversation, but also recording some thoughts or notes with some key aspects there. So I won't go through it now, but if you'd like to use your phone, you can download that immediately. But as I said, we'll send it out to you anyway. All right, the very last piece here is about, I guess, circling all the way back to the start, which was about industrial age language and how we structure organizations and how we don't necessarily set ourselves up for success in an upstream kind of way. And then we're left with lots of hard conversations in a downstream sense. One of my favorite business books is Leadership is Language, written by David Marquet, ex-submarine captain from the US Navy. He wrote Turn the Ship Around, one of the first, was his first book. And he really looked at how the language that we use can create, and I know it sounds obvious, but in his context, he couldn't change structure, policy, processes, everything was dictated. So the only thing he could change was how they spoke to each other in a constrained environment. And he uses a case study of the Alfaro, where what he calls share of voice. And we've been experimenting with an app that actually looks at share of voice. And my team finds this hilarious, but it actually has a mansplaining feature as well. And I may have been called out once or twice for mansplaining by this app, which is interesting. So the share of voice part is, in the Alfaro case, the captain just failed to listen to people effectively, and subsequently everyone on board perished. So psychological safety, a lot of things we've been talking about today, being able to have crystal clear conversations, voice our concerns, but also as a senior leader with authority, being able to hear those concerns. So what I'm going to do is, it's a 2-minute video, so I just need to share my sound, and then I'm going to play it. And this is Mark Hay talking specifically about this notion of red and blue work. Remember, right at the start, we talked about there's the thinkers and then the doers, from the industrial age kind of paradigm. So he has flipped that, and it's lessons of, how he went from the worst performing submarine in the Navy to the highest performing in its history. And it was just through how they spoke to each other. All right, did you enjoy that? Didn't actually play, did it? I don't know why it's not playing. Oh, here we go. All right, so there's some additional slides in the pack that you'll get, which will show you the old school kind of languaging of questions and statements and frameworks, and the new framing, which allows for psychological safety and people to speak up and have those meaningful conversations in the workplace. So these are the areas we've covered. We have covered quite a lot of ground, and I'm going to hand over to Kelly to wrap up. So thank you.
Thanks, Phil. I'm sure everybody has taken at least one thing from today's session that they can go and start working on or implementing in their organization. Would love you to also have what we've been working on, or what Phil has put together, the GPT. I've just popped the link into the chat if you can't access the QR code. It's a really great tool, GPT, that you can use to practice your constructive conversations. So yeah, would love to hear any feedback that you have around that tool. This is just one of the tools that we give our participants inside our Amplify program. And as you can see, we've just spent 90 minutes working on a subcategory of conflict capability. I was just pulling up the Amplify architecture there. So you can see here, of those 27, we've just focused on a subcategory within one element. So there is, plenty of learning here, and that's one of the core 27 projects within Amplify, our program, where we help you to, in the short term, the aim is really to help you reclaim time as a leader and reduce the noise and improve results through your team. And then over the short to mid-term, it's all about building and leading a great team culture to support sustainable performance. The program isn't here to add any more to your plate. It's here to help you stop doing work your team should be doing, design the conditions where performance actually becomes easier, and lead in a way that scales without burning you or your team out. So this is what we help senior leaders do within our Amplify program. So really, if you're a senior leader with 5 years more experience, if you're leading a team inside a really fast-moving or complex organization, and also if you're willing to challenge yourself and maybe your team as well, and you want real leadership impact, then this is what we've got potentially for you, and this is what the Amplify journey looks like. So there's some one-on-one onboarding, two-day immersive experiences that you can see there, where we focus on building a high-performing team culture and also expanding influence and strategic elevation as well. And it's also supported by ongoing support. And what that ongoing support looks like is 6-week cycles where we have a thought leadership workshop, a group coaching session within the 6 weeks, and then opportunities to connect through office hours at other times throughout the cycle as well. So lots of touch points that are available. But again, as we said, we don't want to add more to leaders' plates. We want to make sure that this is actually saving you time, over the work that we do together. And just finally, if you're interested, we have 8 founding member places available. So it's at a founding member price point, and there's some added bonuses there as well. So I'm just going to pop the brochure if you would like to have a look. There is an application form. It's by application only. We want to make sure that we have the right leaders in the program. If you'd like to have a look at the brochure, we would love to have a conversation with you to make sure that it is the right fit for you. And yeah, applications closed 13th of March. Like I said, there's only 8 places. So you have to complete the application, and we'll book a time with you to have a chat. So I think that was really quick and we're 1 minute over.
Well done.
I'm going to finish there. Thank you all so much for coming along. Really appreciate it. And we look forward to connecting with you all soon.
Thanks so much, everyone. It's great to see you all.